All right, according to Verizon, it's 3 o'clock. At this time, Betty, could you read the Declaration of Electronic Meetings?
Yes. On March 31st, 2020, the Middlesex Board of Supervisors ratified a declaration of emergency issued by the county's Director of Emergency Management and adopted an ordinance to ensure continuity of county government. A copy of this ordinance can be found on the county's website under Board of Supervisors Ordinances number 81. These procedures include the ability for the Board of Supervisors and other county public entities to conduct electronic meetings. Information on how to access these meetings by video and telephone is posted on the county website. This ordinance was extended on May 5th, 2020, and again on November 4th, 2020. The provisions of the ordinance and electronic meetings is in effect for a period of 6 months unless amended, rescinded, or readopted by the Board of Supervisors. An audio recording is being made of the meeting, which will be linked from the county's website. Notice of the meetings, along with access information, has been posted on the county's website and at the front of the historic courthouse. An electronic meeting link was also sent to those persons that have asked to be part of the board's agenda list. As each person joins the meeting, the public audio will be muted to avoid background noise, and the board and staff audio will be open. If a meeting calls for public comment, the chairman will announce that the meeting is open for comments and public lines will be unmuted. Those with an audio connection should use *9, which will notify the moderator that you wish to comment. To unmute your own phone, you should use *6. Those with video capability are to use the raise hand feature to be recognized by the chair. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak, and each speaker must identify themselves when speaking. All votes will be by roll call and recorded in the minutes. Board members who leave the meeting or arrive must verbally note their attendance. If all board members are not joined by video, a roll call will be made every 2 hours to confirm a quorum.
All right, board members, do you understand the process, and are there any questions? If not, the purpose of this meeting is for our March the 2nd regular meeting of the month. At this time, Betty, could you give us roll call? And I'd like to say Lud Kimmel is running a little bit late, but he will be here. Could we get roll call?
Mr. Coons?
Present.
Mr. Mansfield?
Present.
Mr. Williams?
Present.
And Mr. Jesse?
Present. We do have a quorum. At this time, Reginald, could you please lead us in prayer, and Matt Walker will lead us in pledge allegiance to the flag.
Let us pray. Oh, gracious God, we come once again, calling on you for guidance, calling on every leader in this county in the leadership role to strengthen each other in the process, in the system. God, so we can understand that we're all in this race together. We believe in accountability, Father. Show us accountability. We believe in being created equal. Show us how to create things that are equal. Father, as we go on in this meeting now, be with us and guide us that even if we disagree, to agree. In Jesus' name, we all do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Would all citizens of the United States of America rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Betty, I'm going to turn it over to you right this instance.
Okay. Members of the board and the members of the public that are present at the meeting today, I want to introduce you to Anne Marie Riccardi, who we have hired to give us some continuity and to allow me to transition out of my current position as assistant administrator. Ms. Riccardi comes to us from holding the Chief Financial Officer position with the Hendry County School District in LaBelle, Florida, along with 17 years as the Finance Director with the City of Naples, Florida. Although she's been in Florida for a while, Middlesex is not unfamiliar to her. Most of her childhood summers were spent here, Annual family reunions have been here, and she and other family members own homes here. And I know that her family and we are certainly glad that she has returned to make Middlesex her permanent home. All the board members met Ms. Riccardi this morning, but we welcome her aboard.
All right, we'd like to welcome you aboard again, Marie.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to serve. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, first on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda, which consists of A, meetings from the package 1 through 5, page 1 through 5, and then B, the minutes of February the 2nd, which was the budget work section, our regular meeting, and then February 5th was the budget work session, and then February the 9th was a joint meeting with the school board. And disbursement and payroll. Are there any corrections or anything with the consent agenda or additions? If not, do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Reginald Williams, then we have a second by Pete Mansfield. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield.
Turn that mic on, Pete.
You just muted yourself.
Turn that mic on.
There you go.
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough is not
Here.
present.
He's here.
I'm here, Betty.
Okay, Mr. Kimbrough
Aye.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye. So moved. Next on the agenda is public comment. The chairman will invite the public to make public comments. Each speaker will be given the opportunity to speak during the regular meeting, public comment period, and one during the public hearing period. All comments will be addressed to the Board of Supervisors and not the audience. If you have a microphone on your computer, you can present comments to your computer. There's a raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting stream that allows you to raise your hand and make a public comment. The moderator, our chairman, can see your hand raised and the microphone will be unmuted so that you can make comments. If you do not have a microphone and wish to make comments, you would have to call into the meeting using the information above. If you call in by phone to comment, you can press *9, which is same as the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen, to let the moderator or chairman know that you wish to speak. When the chairman calls on you, press *6 to unmute your phone so you can make your comments. You must identify yourself and the time are still in place, 3 minutes per person. Kevin, do we have anyone that would like to speak?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Muller has her hand raised.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry I haven't been able to attend any of the budget meetings, but I would like to make some comments this morning or this afternoon. For years, you all have accepted our school system's argument that our county needs to pay competitive salaries to recruit and retain good teachers. Don't you think that holds true for our 24/7, 365 days a year police officers who are protecting our safety and security of every person in the county? Low wages means it's difficult to recruit officers who are trained and have experience. That results in the county making investments in training and onboarding of officers. And once we make such investments and the officers become efficient and effective, he or she leaves for a better paying position. I think we need to be protecting our investments. Our county has the lowest police officer pay scale in the region, and we house these officers in a substandard facility wrought with mold. What message does that send? In today's highly charged political environment where the state and federal governments are releasing criminals into the general population, at the same time impinging on law-abiding citizens' rights to protect and defend themselves, we need to be supporting our men and women in blue. I also want to address the budget requests of the Registrar's office. My parents ingrained in me that America is unique and special because its citizens have the right and duty to vote. My vote gives me a voice as to whom I put my trust in to protect my constitutional rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Our tax dollars are required to protect the integrity of the vote. Until recently, I wasn't involved much with the registrar's office, but I have learned that their work is quite complex to assure our fair and accurate elections. This year's significant increase in the registrar's budget request is a direct result of the state's new laws and regulations. For example, extending the voting cycle to 45 days, allowing no reason mail-in ballots, which has significantly increased the number of mail-in ballots that have to be processed, which requires significant more manpower to process these ballots, and it also increases postage. Requiring more officers of election to run an election and requiring software and hardware upgrades, new security requirements, pandemic PPE, and cleaning requirements. All of these have hit the registrar's office hard, and there is no fluff in the registrar's budget request. As a tax-paying citizen, I'm asking the board to support the budget requests of the sheriff and the registrar's office. I submit that financially supporting the safety, security of our community and the integrity of our vote supersedes the ever-increasing budget request of the school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Mhm.
Next. Anybody else, Kevin?
Just to remind everyone, if you're calling in by phone, *9 raises your hand. I do not see any at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, if not, I'd like to close the public comment period. At this time, we have constitutional officer, the treasurer and the commissioner of revenue, Kathy Frith and May Burke, which is on page 56 through 61. Kathy, do I see Kathy down there? Yeah, I
We're
see
here,
Kathy.
Wayne.
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right. May and I both are here.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Kathy at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to comment first. The report is in exactly the format that I had hoped it would eventually be in. We actually can see how we're doing on collections versus at least 2 years prior. And I want to commend both of your offices because we're seeing significant improvement year over year. And I know that transitioning from previous administration and taking over, even though you're both very experienced in these offices, to be able to maintain that climb in efficiency and collections is impressive. The only question I had is on personal property tax. It seems like that's where a lot of money is still left on the table. And for my benefit and for the benefit of my constituents, can you maybe briefly explain why it's so hard to get up into the high 90s as we are in all the other tax collection categories?
John, it should increase because the debt service we'll get from their state income. And see, that's later coming in because people are just beginning to file their taxes. We also, at that point, when delinquent letters are going out this week, after 30 days, we'll place the DMV stops, and we catch a lot of people that want their tags and can't get them. So it should increase, but it's always, these two things have had to happen to get it to increase.
And I reviewed this last night late, but I think the meals tax, you're getting 100% collection now, is that correct?
Not on everybody. Hold on just a minute.
Kevin, are you able to show page 61 or so?
2020, we have 100%. That's it. We do have 100% on 2020.
There it was.
Yeah.
No, up. I think it's up.
Up.
Sorry to take so long. This really jumped out at me. Yeah, it's that page.
Oh, Kevin.
There it is. So in 2020, on the meals tax, you were at 100%.
Yes, sir.
That is phenomenal for a fairly recent tax, and I want to commend you on that. So that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any more questions for Kathy? If not, thank you, Kathy. May Burke. Do
Hello.
we have any questions for May?
My comments were for both offices, so
Right.
that was meant for Kathy and May.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if not, thank you, and all I can say is keep up the good work.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next, we will have agency and staff report, VDOT, which report only on page 62 to 64.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to report that the park and ride in Hartfield, the lights had been out. Carlton actually noticed it, Mr. Revere, and Joyce McGowan was able to address that in a fairly short time, and those lights are back on. We also discussed some of my constituents, and maybe everyone's, have been talking about the potholes from recent storms on 17 and 33, and I've noticed that a lot of patching has started, and there's more of that to come.
Right, yeah, I noticed that too. They've been clearing all the trees first at, up on the 17, where north now, we had a lot of ice up that area, and they're getting all the trees out the way first, and then Joyce was telling me they're gonna come back and start potholing. All right. Thank you. Next, we will have B, school matter, Dr. Peter Gretz.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Looks like I still have that background. I did a presentation yesterday for folks about our solar panels. Thanks for having me today. Looking at your packet, the first order of business is on page 65, and this is a budget supplement request. There is money that we received through the CARES Act funding, and this in particular was reassessed and redistributed to all the receiving agencies. Divisions. Our portion of that reassessment to support assessment is $10.80. So I need to ask you to approve that to be moved into our operating budget. The next budget supplement request is insurance money that was recovered from catalytic converters that were stolen from 2 of our vehicles. And so you can see the amount on page 66 that we're asking to be appropriated. Again, that's recovered through our insurance. That's the 2 supplemental. And then we have a budget transfer request of moving CARES Act funding that we've already received. We'd like to move it to support the purchase of a cloud-based solution for our maintenance folks to be able to respond to traffic light, safety light concerns remotely. And so that's what this is. I've got another, but I'll ask Mr. Chair, do you want me to stop there with those and then address the HVAC, or keep going forward and do the HVAC now?
We can stop with those for those right now, and we get a motion. Do we have a motion to approve FY 2021-54-55 with the supplement request, and also FY 2021-07 budget transfer request form? Do we have a motion to approve? There a motion by John Coons. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion by John Coons, probably second by Lud Kimball. Any more question? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. So moved.
Thank you. The next item, Mr. Chair, is on page 68, pages 68 through 72. This is a copy of a proposal that we've received from Honeywell. I know we've talked about this HVAC situation at the elementary school at length, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but I'm happy to if the situation warrants it. Just a quick summary. We had approached the school board last month, and the school board unanimously voted to move forward with a design build solution. We procured through the General Services Agreement, which has been vetted at the federal level, to make sure that we're getting the best deal possible available for a small community and a small school division. So based on that approval, we have a proposal from Honeywell. This was favorable for us for 3 reasons, really. The first is that the design build feature would prevent us from getting into some difficult situations that we often end up in when we do the traditional bid, solicit bids and then design it and then build it situation. So the design build offers us a hard, fast number that we know cannot be changed with change orders throughout the project. What's budgeted for that is exactly what it will cost. And so Honeywell has provided that. Using the General Services Agreement to procure through Honeywell is favorable for us for a couple of reasons, because Honeywell is very familiar with our building. They're familiar with the units and the intricacies of the infrastructure over there. We have a long-lasting relationship with them. And based on our performance contract through Honeywell, they have a vested interest in making sure that whatever goes in there is efficient and can live up to the specifications of that contract. Otherwise, they will be on the hook financially to make up the difference. So these were the reasons that the school board supported this. We can't move forward with it, obviously, until we have the funding for the project in place. I know that the project was put into a financing package along with some other HVAC renovation costs related to other county needs, I think in this building where I am right now. And I think the county has received those proposals, and he can certainly address whatever preliminary results are coming from that. But my request here today is for you to fund moving forward with this project using that proposal that's in your packet. And I do have representatives from Honeywell as well as Dustin Harris are on the line today. If there is a desire to hear from them, I'm sure they are happy to respond, as am I. So I'll stop there and see what the pleasure of the board is.
Does the board have any questions for Peter Gretz? Dr. Gretz at this time?
I'm just trying to remember what the last figure was that we discussed.
Well,
And it might be exactly this. I just,
well, on the quote from what I'm reading, and Peter Gretz can probably address this, but I'm looking at $1,695,023.89. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the first time I approached you, it was more of an informal quote, not to exceed 1.7. This is the actual number.
Mm-hmm. Right. Matt, I'd like to hear from Matt.
Yes, sir. We were intending to have an RFP returned to us by Friday, last Friday of March. We were notified by Ted Cole and Davenport and Associates that was delayed to give the banks a little bit more time to get their submittals and responses to the RFP back to us. That new due date is back on the 18th, but we have requested that they include the HVAC project at the elementary school as part of the overall financing that we're seeking for the Cook's Corner improvements. We should have those RFPs back on the 18th.
So I think, well, you think it's a good idea? I want to hear from the board to table this till we get everything from Ted Cole and them. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I'm satisfied with the project as it's been submitted at this point. The board may want to vote and authorize moving ahead with the project, and then we'll select the best financing package that we get as a result of the RFP that's coming in on the 18th. So I guess the motion would need to be contingent upon final selection of the financing package, and we should have information on the 18th.
Okay. So what's the will of the board? I want to hear from my board members.
I think we've vetted this for years and it's time to do it. And we're at the point where we're ready to pull the trigger contingent on the financing coming through on the 18th. And that would, I think, allow us to get this project done this summer.
I would agree.
I agree with that. We've been talking about this forever, and I feel like we've got it narrowed down to a good design build
Okay.
proposal, and the timing for the time of year is perfect if we pull the trigger now.
All right. So do we have a motion for this Honeywell proposal, design built for 1.6 million?
Yes, I move
All right.
that we authorize the schools to proceed with the HVAC project at the elementary school with Honeywell and the intention to complete that project this year.
We have that motion by John Kunst. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion by John Kunst, properly second by Pete Mansfield. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye. Motion so carried.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Butts.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda would be social service report only. It's on page 73 to 75. And I don't guess any board members have any questions. Next, we have line item D, Planning Department update, Hazardous Mitigation Plan by Dave Kretz and David Layman, page 76 and 82. Dave.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. This is our 5-year update for this particular plan. David Layman and I are the representatives for the county on this. We've both been working with the PDC to try to bring this back for final consideration. Thus far, both David and I have attended 2 meetings. The first meeting we weren't for some reason or another invited to, but we have attended both meetings and we've been submitting our required information that are forms to fill out and update county information, that type of thing. So thus far, we're completely up to date with where they want us to be. A little bit about this mitigation plan. This is a plan that's required by FEMA. It's connected to many of our programs and possible funding. Most importantly is our flood insurance program that's somewhat tied in with this. It'll be evaluated, I believe, with this plan as well. We basically, David and I so far, some of the items that have come up are, we've looked at the hazards. We've narrowed some of those down to certain kind of filtering out some of the unnecessary things like I don't believe volcanoes are an issue in this area and that type of thing. So they've cleaned that up a little bit. At the bottom of your packet there, at the page for this report, you can see the implementation schedule, all the meeting schedules, and final closeout and ultimate approval timelines. So as time goes on, we're going to update the board as to where we're at on this. It's very early in this process. So David Layman's on board too. He's with us today. If you have any questions, you can ask either one of us. Does the board have any questions at this juncture?
Well, does anybody have any questions for Dave or David Layman on the mitigation hazard plan? Nope.
Nope.
No questions.
We will be bringing updates to the board periodically, so the board's up to date on where we're at with this.
Okay. All right. Now, how about now you with Whiting Creek project update?
Yes, sir. Let me scan to that page. Excuse me. The bids came in for Whitings Creek. You can see that amount listed there for the final bid. We got two bids. One of them came in at 70, excuse me, I believe 70,000. Matt, could you put that up? Can you post that?
$392 I'm looking at.
Yeah, I don't have that. For some reason, I don't have it printed out.
We may need to get Kevin to pull the packet up again. Kevin, can you do that?
Yeah. The final bid came in at 70,392. We got a second bid that was right around 73,000 for that package. Of course, that includes the site work and the construction of the physical bulkhead that on the end and the site improvements, including some drainage improvements. So you can see both bids were pretty close. They were within $3,000 of each other. So, you would suspect that they're fairly accurate. It doesn't look like anyone's out of kilter one way or the other. So I guess at this time, it's my understanding, the recommendation from administration anyway would be to try to take this under consideration in the next budget session. This is a board decision, and at some point the board may want to consider funding this project.
Yeah, and I can piggyback on that a little bit, Dave, if I may. Being that it's tripped over the $50,000 threshold, it's better treated as a capital improvement, and we do have that funded in the county's capital improvement projects for next budget year.
All right.
Does anybody have any other questions about the project itself while I'm here?
Any board members have any questions on the project?
Yeah, Matt, when you say next budget year, you mean 12 months from now?
July 1st, fiscal year 2022.
So we would potentially take this up in the July meeting because it's funded in the CIP?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Any more questions? If not, thank you, Dave. Appreciate the information.
Thank you.
All right. Next is going to be line item E, Parks and Recreation Department update. We have Karen Reed and Heather Lewis.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I just, Karen and I are going to go over some of the updates. As you have in your packet there, the board asked me to prepare an agreement between the Triangle Skateboard Alliance, known as TSA, and Middlesex County. This organization wishes to donate skate park equipment for the skate park down at Cook's Corner. They did have a stipulation. They did ask that if the county should ever stop using the equipment, that they have first right of refusal to take the equipment back. So what I did is I drafted an agreement that outlines that. It's in your packet on page 86 and 87 and 88. You will also see that they've outlined a valuation of the equipment that they're donating. There's about 6 items for a total value of $2,545. So this agreement says that they're donating the equipment as identified and at that cost, and that should we ever stop using the park as a public park, we'll give TSA the first right of refusal to take the equipment back in its current condition. And that is that. So this is before the board for consideration and authorization of signature. Karen, is there anything I missed that you want to add?
Yes. I spoke with one of the TSA members, and they are in agreement with the MOU as it is.
Thank you, Karen. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, what is the board's pleasure?
I have a question for Heather. What kind of liability do we have on the skateboard
Mr. Mansfield, are you asking about liability by accepting this donated equipment or just in general?
It just in general, actually.
That may be a question that would be best served answered in a closed session under advice with legal counsel, if that's the desire. I would say that in a general statement, and I'd be happy to go into more detail into closed session, that one of the things we'll have to do is look at our insurance, make sure we have sufficient coverage, but the immunity of the county is quite broad, being a political subdivision of the Commonwealth. So as Karen and I have discussed, we're going to make sure this equipment's installed correctly and, periodically inspect it. That's about as far as I'm comfortable answering at this time. But again, I'd be happy to answer that question. I think it would be appropriate for a lengthier discussion if you so desire in closed session.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Heather. Okay. At this time, do we have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Triangle Skateboard Alliance and Middlesex County of Virginia?
So moved.
We have a motion by John Coons. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by John Coons, probably second by Reginald Williams. Is there any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried. All right. Next would be basketball court and playground update. Karen Reed.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi. Good afternoon.
For the basketball courts, we're still working on that. We'll determine which direction we want to put the basketball court, where we want to do in the L shape, attached from the asphalt the concrete that's already there, or in a T shapes, so we can have more room on the sides. Because if you do it going in the same direction as the skateboard park is going, we won't have as much room on the side. So we are still debating on how we want to do that. But we still want to do the concrete slab about 4 inches in thickness, smooth surface, and the goals, and the lines on the courts, benches, and trash cans. And I'm also working on signage for the courts, as well as I'm working on signage for the skate park. And as far as and we're still working, I spoke with Mr. Williams. We're trying to figure out some prices on the concrete and the leveling of the ground. Once we get all that together, then we can let you all know where we stand with that. And as far as the playground, we visited 2 sites last week, took pictures, and we're still trying to determine what equipment we want on the playground. And we're looking at, see how much room we have beside the kid building for a playground and how much equipment we can put there. And I know we went by the elementary school. We liked some of the equipment they had. We went to a banner park and we saw some of their equipment. So I talked to a couple of people and businesses that has equipment. And so they put the compiling package for me and see whether I like this package or not. And I can make my own package, but it all depends on the price. And we want to establish a nice public park there at the Cook's Corner.
All right, then. Anybody have any questions for Karen? If not, thank you, Karen, for that update. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Next line item for F would be electoral board. Mel Placilla. Page 89. It's got Mel here. Oh, that's right. I think
Mr. Scott is gonna present.
only that Mel wouldn't be here and John Scott. Okay. All right.
Actually, it'll be Barbara.
Barbara. Okay. All right. Okay.
Hang on, Mr. Chairman. I'm bringing her into the panel now.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Barbara.
Thank you. You have our budget as we had submitted it, and I really do not have a lot of additional information for you. I am mainly here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, does any board member have any questions for Barbara and for the electoral board at this time?
On this equipment's mandated, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
And mandated by a certain date?
yes. The poll books, the replacement of the poll books is mandated because the equipment that we currently have has been decertified and cannot be used again. And we are looking at a primary on the 8th of June, and we need to have the equipment in place by then.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any more questions for Barbara or John? Well, I know that, like I said, we're going through our budget and process, and whatever mandated, you got to go by what's mandated from the state.
Well, and as despite the fact that there is a large increase in that budget, we have not asked for anything that we didn't absolutely have to have. We are looking at the likelihood of 3 elections next year, and all of the attendant equipment and security, and we have more and more security requirements all the time.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Barbara a question?
Yes.
Barbara, the state is mandating that we change out this equipment, obviously, right?
Yes.
Then why aren't they going to pay for it?
Only once in my 45 years of being involved in elections have I seen any funding from the state for election equipment, and that was with the Help America Vote Act of 2002 money when we replaced our mechanical lever machines with the touch screens. And I was involved from the state end with that. And, we told everybody at the time, this is a one-shot thing and there will not be any money forthcoming. Just as elections are under the federal constitution a state matter, the operation and administration of elections, as far as the equipment and all is concerned, is a local matter.
Do they have any, what is the reason that we're changing it out? I used it in this last election, thought it was wonderful.
Well, we're not replacing the voting machines at this time. We have a set aside in the budget for the eventual replacement of voting machines because we know they have a lifespan of roughly 10 years. This is the poll book that maintains the voter registration list that the election officers use on election day to check you into the polls. And I think perhaps Melissa might be able to address since the voter registration list is really a registrar function, Melissa might be able to address that better than I can.
I appreciate that, Barbara. I thought it was the voting machine, so I apologize for the question.
Oh, no, this is the poll books.
Good deal. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Anybody have any more questions? If
Yeah,
not,
Mr. Chair, could Matt just detail for me how we pay for that? I think if it's mandated and Pete can't drag the money out of the state, then we just need to know where the money's coming from.
Well, I admire Mr. Mansfield for trying. Maybe we can bring that up next time we talk to Mr. Hodges. Barbara's right. We created a set-aside fund several years ago to help pay for some of the whims of the state and how they want to replace equipment on a drop of the hat. I couldn't help but chuckle, Pete, when you brought that point up, because if it was the voting machines, it'd be quite a bit more money. I just want to chime in to say, to make sure everyone's clear, They need this money and this appropriation now in order to get this equipment in place before the June meeting. That's my understanding. So you probably need to follow this up with a motion to appropriate the monies. And it is mandated, so you don't really have a whole lot of choice. We can rail against unfunded mandates, but that's what it is. And we're responsible for it. So.
So is that the $36,000 that I'm seeing here?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's for you to upgrade. I see it reading on it. These electronic poll books must be certified and will be expire every 4 years. I mean, last 4 years anyway. But every 4 years, you're gonna have to be, updating them.
So in answer to your question, the money would come from the general fund, or it could come from the portion of the money that's been set aside for replacement of the actual voting equipment.
Okay. So at this time, then, do we have a motion for appropriation request for machinery and equipment for $36,000?
Mr. Chair, I think we need, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think the motion should include whether we take it from the general fund or from the reserve.
Right. Okay, well, we have the motion either to take it from the general fund or reserve then on that motion, that $36,000.
I'll make a motion so that we can have a discussion. I move that we fund the unfunded mandate for the election equipment out of the reserve fund.
All right.
And I second.
We have a motion by John Coons, and it was probably seconded by Lud Kimball. We have a motion been probably second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'm curious. This is $36,000, correct?
That's
Right.
correct.
And how much is reserved currently? Do we know that?
I don't have that figure in front of me.
I was more looking at the administration.
Oh,
part.
okay.
Right. We're talking with Melissa a little bit about that to make sure we're accounting similarly to they are, but according to our records and our budget, will have I think $54,000 in that line item by the end of this fiscal year. But there's some discrepancy there on how we're counting that. They may have started earlier than us, or we may have started later than them, one or the other. One point I would say, the reserve is set aside for this purpose, but it really all comes from the general fund balance. We just have that parceled out and assigned in different categories based on need. So it's kind of a moot point. Even though it's coming from that reserve, it's still general fund balance. It's just
that's what I was driving at, Matt. But I do like the idea that we've been reserving for something and now we're using it. So if we're going to do a reserve like that, that's why I sort of erred on this moot point towards a motion to pull it from the reserve.
Roger that. And I would definitely recommend you do that. We'll be revisiting the reserve and the amount we put in it from year to year. Currently, we put in about $11,000 into that reserve annually for these type of circumstances. But more importantly, about every 9 years, they come in and decide they want new voting machines. And that is very expensive. So I would recommend y'all move forward with bringing the money from the reserves.
Right. Well, like I said, we had a motion and probably second to move the money from the reserve. Is there any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried. Next, we have on the agenda would be line item G, sewer and project update, Timmons Group. We have Ken Turner and Bob Rowe.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to introduce Bob Roop and Ken Turner. I think they're going to be walking the board through a PowerPoint presentation. And Lud, you may want to chime in on this. We recently had a sewer committee meeting where they reviewed the supplemental PER that they have prepared for the topping sewer service area. And this is I guess, the first of 2 supplemental PERs, because the next one will be done for Deltaville and the provision of sewer down in Deltaville. So Lud, would you like to chime in a little bit and
Hey,
maybe
we don't have anything on our screen right now. I don't know what happened. I'm just seeing a screensaver.
I can see y'all fine.
Yeah, we just see a screensaver. That's all we see.
I'll fix that. Sorry about that.
All right.
I'll wait for Kevin a little bit. And Kevin, Ken,
We're back.
There we go.
We're back again. Okay.
Okay, very good. Kevin, Ken or Bob Roop 1 are going to have to share their screens to go through their PowerPoint.
Yep, they should be able to do that. If they can't, let me know, please.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
So just by way of introduction, the Sewer Study Committee had not met for a number of months while Timmons was preparing the PER for the topping area. And this was the first formalized introduction of using a low pressure alternative to the system that was originally designed by Bowman that relied on vacuum type systems. And so our committee has been seeking ways to reduce the cost of implementing sewer system. And this was the first sort of a test to see whether our what we understood in terms of technology would in fact reduce cost while still providing a very sound system, and one importantly that complies with Hrsd's requirements. And I think that this has been a really successful engineering exercise, and look forward to having Ken and Bob share this with you. They did share it with our study group last week and had a very positive response from that group. What this does is it lays a technology foundation in place that we can use to do the next PER for the Deltaville area and hopefully be able to reap the same sort of cost savings, which is in excess of 30%, in excess of a third cost reduction for transitioning to this other technology. So with that, Ken, I think you have the con.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ken Turner. I'm with Timmons Group. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to provide this update. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. And let me know when you can see the presentation come up. Is that the presentation on your screen now? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you go to slideshow, Ken, so you get the full screen?
I am. There you go.
There it is. Okay.
All right. This is an update on the topping area sewer system engineering design for the Grace Point campground and the area directly around the airfield. During this update, we'll discuss the Hrsd Middlesex operations parameters. The county system is planning to connect to Hrsd. We'll also discuss the county constructed gravity system and low pressure collection system to convey flow to Hrsd. We'll also talk about the county constructed Hrsd operated terminal pump station and force main, and the homeowner constructed and maintained grinder pumps. This is an exhibit that shows the overall service area for the topping sewer district. The primary phase 1 operation of this study and system deployment is to serve the Grace Point campground with the existing 775 campsites. They're planning to abandon their 90 or so septic tanks and pump flow to a gravity main right on the county property directly adjacent to Grace Point. The flow in the gravity system will flow down to a county constructed Hrsd owned, operated and maintained pump station you see right there on the edge of the county property, right off of Grace Point Road. Then approximately 2 miles of force main will be designed, constructed by Middlesex County, and it will be turned over to HRSD for ownership, operation, and maintenance. This is the ultimate system deployment, that's several years out, so we don't really need to discuss this in great detail. And again, this is another exhibit that shows the overall area going out to General Puller Highway. HRSD currently has a project to abandon the Saluda and Urbana wastewater treatment plants, install pump stations there, and run a pipe up General Puller Highway over to Gloucester to convey the flow from Urbana and Saluda. And at this point, we're taking the opportunity to provide service to the topping area of the county. And this shows the location of the metering facility from Grays Point Marina, gravity flow down to the pump station, and then the county portion of the force main, which will be designed and constructed and turned over to HRSD. Again, this is a phasing map and shows ultimate system deployment. With the construction and operations concept, what we have prepared is that the county collection system and terminal pump station will be designed and constructed by 2024. HRSD will install the force mains pump stations to abandon the existing wastewater treatment plants and convey that flow to Gloucester County. The homeowners will have a house connection that will include a grinder pump installation that may be county supplied. We haven't worked out all those details yet. With respect to maintenance and operation, the county collection system will end at the manhole directly upstream of the pump station to be turned over to HRSD. So the county will be responsible for maintaining the collection system and any distribution lines coming to the first manhole upstream of the HRSD terminal pump station. The HRSD terminal pump station, once constructed by the county, will be turned over to HRSD, and the homeowners will be responsible for running power to the pump station, for the connections to the lateral from the house to the grinder, and then connection to the conveyance system that the county will maintain at the property line. This is a schematic to kind of go over the connections and some of the items that have come out of the discussion with HRSD. HRSD will require a sewer customer to be connected to a municipal water system with metered consumption. The bills that are going to be generated from the sewer system will be based on metered water consumption. And each resident will have a E1 grinder pump located close to the right-of-way is the most desirable situation. There's been discussion about locating these closer to the home if the house is located pretty far from the right-of-way. That's something that we'll look at on a case-by-case basis if needed. And then HRSD is going to require isolation valve at the property line or the right-of-way to indicate a line of demarcation between private ownership and county ownership. I know that some of the roads, the property owners own out to the center of the road, so we'll have to work out easements or some other way to determine the line of demarcation between the property owner responsibility and the county responsibility. This is another schematic of how several houses can be connected. If they're lower than the road or higher than the road, that situation may vary on a case-by-case basis. The E1 pump unit is approximately 5 to 6 feet tall. It's direct buried near the property line. You hook up 2 20-amp breakers and you hook up the gravity pipe from the house, and it operates automatically as flow comes into the unit. The pumping units should last approximately 10 years before the core will need to be replaced. And that can be done under a maintenance contract with either the county administered maintenance contract or a private maintained maintenance agreement between property owners and a contractor. And the property owner is responsible for the line from the house to the property line or the county owned main. I wanted to talk about the connection fees and facility charges that are associated with the sewer system deployment. HRSD has a facility charge for a 5/8" water meter of $1,920 based on FY21 rates. That price may escalate on an annual basis, so we don't know exactly what that facility charge will be in 2024 when the system is deployed. The HRSD rate policy, section 22, has a provision that if a private property previously served by a septic tank is connected to the sewer system, the applicable facility charge may be waived for equivalent flow. So while HRSD maintains this facility charge, they may waive this cost if the customers are coming off of a septic tank onto the HRSD system. Currently, in the financial model that we've developed, the Middlesex County sewer connection fee has been set at $10,000 in the financial model for a 5/8" meter. It may be higher for larger meters and can be addressed on a graduated scale for larger meters.
And Ken, real quickly, before you move forward with that, let me interject something that's very important for the board. That $10,000 has only been set for modeling purposes. The board has not set a connection fee yet. That's still within the board's parameters to do, but we needed a number to model after, so we decided to use a similar connection fee as the Water Authority has. Sorry, Ken, I just wanted to interject that.
Thanks for the clarification, Matt. Some or all of this connection fee may be deferred if the private property owner decides to install the pump, the lateral, or the electrical connection. Those are some details that still need to be worked out. And the county sewer connection fee for larger services may be based on actual cost of the pump, lateral, and electrical connection. So those are items yet to be determined. Looking at some cost comparisons from the original PER that HRSD completed for the vacuum system, comparing that to the low pressure system. For phase 1 deployment, the construction cost that we're looking at is about $2.5 million, and the vacuum system deployment was approximately $4 million. So there's about $1.5 million savings when you compare the cost of deployment of a low pressure system to the vacuum system. Phase 2 of the project, phase 1 and 2 is for the initial 775 units of the campground to come online, and then another additional 225 in about 5 years. So once they get connected, that will free up more real estate for them to install additional campsites. So that's going to be the main revenue generation for the topping sewer system. This represents about a 1/3 reduction in the cost when you're looking at a low pressure system deployment. And the largest contributing factor of these estimates is the cost included in building a new vacuum pump station. The low pressure system design includes 1 terminal pump station, and the vacuum system included 3 stations. So this is a major element of the cost savings. I'm going to review the rate evaluations that we did for 4 different scenarios and go over the assumptions here initially. The rate evaluation considerations, it's a 2-part sewer rate. 1 part of the sewer charge per 1,000 gallons of flow. Part of it is based on a locality portion of the rate for collection and conveyance from the county to the HRSD system. And then HRSD has another portion to the unit rate for conveyance to the treatment plant and for treatment at the regional wastewater treatment plant. In the model that we've developed to look at the financial considerations associated with system deployment, we have assumed annual rate growth for the county rate at 2% and at 3%. We've looked at an interest rate on the cost of capital 2%, and we've looked at consumptions at 200 gallons per day, which is about 6,000 gallons per month, and then 300 gallons per day, which is about 8,000 gallons per month. And as I have indicated previously, this is primarily for phase 1 and 2 deployment. For phase 1, Grays Point Campground is going to come online with all of the sites that they currently have. And then in about 5 years after the system deployment, around 2029, is when we've assumed the additional 225 units will come online from the campground. And currently there are only a few commercial or residential customers in the topping area that have indicated a desire to connect to the system. in phase 3 and 4 are pretty far out there, so I'm not going to focus on those too much for this update. Here's a summary of some of the major components of the rate study we looked at. This scenario looks at a 3% escalation in the county rate and 300 gallons per day water usage per customer. Some of the key things you see here is that the annual O&M cost associated with this model is $130,000, and that the revenue generated from billing with this model is $206,000. So that nets a positive balance at the end of the first year of $75,000. So that's the main takeaway. And looking at the breakdown of the components for the Hrsd billing rate, you can see that Hrsd's portion is $9.90 per thousand projected out to 2024, and the county rate is $7.17 projected out to 2024. So those are a couple things that you can take away from this. The next scenario, we had a 2% escalation, still at 300 gallons per day of water usage per customer. Again, the annual O&M cost stays the same. The revenue from billing is about the same as well for the first year. However, in future years with the lower escalation, this number doesn't increase as much as the 3% escalation. So again, for the 300 gallon per day consumption, you have the excess revenue at the end of the first year of the sewer system operation at about $75,000. Looking at a 3% escalation and a lower per capita consumption of 200 gallons per day.
And are we able to ask questions now, or are you?
Yeah, you can ask questions whenever you want. That's perfectly fine. I have a slide at the end, but if you have questions, feel free to jump in.
The 717 that you've been using, and that's unit billing rate. What's the unit?
Per thousand gallons of water usage.
Per year or per quarter?
So what we did is on a monthly basis, we're assuming that a person uses about 6,000 gallons per month for this scenario. Scenarios A and B looked at about 8,000 gallons per month. So that would be 8 times the total rate of the county and the Hrsd cost.
Got it. Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to interject at this point? So the punchline for this scenario with the reduced consumption at 200 gallons per day and a 3% escalation is that the revenue generator from billing for this lower consumption does not cover the annual O&M cost. So this financial analysis is not financially viable. And then when you look at the last scenario, at the 2% escalation rate of the county rate and 200 gallons per day, you see a similar thing where the annual O&M cost of operation of the system is not covered by the revenue. So there's in year one, there's a $25,000 deficit, and that deficit grows over time. So to summarize, for these different scenarios, we've looked at the total unit cost per 1,000 gallons for a customer, and a customer's bill is going to vary. In the summertime when some of these summer rentals are being used, you get 2 or 3 families in there and the bills will be higher. But in off months and when Grace Point Campground is closed, you'll have lower consumption. So we think we've generated a conservative estimate of the revenue generation and the O&M cost. And then, so this is looking at some of the monthly fees. So at the 200 gallons per capita per day, a resident that uses about 6,000 gallons per month will see a total sewer bill of about $102 starting in 2024. And that will escalate over time. So some of the conclusions that you can take away from this project update is that scenarios A and B with a 2 and 3% escalation using 300 gallons per day or 8,000 gallons per month result in a positive cumulative operation and maintenance cost and capital cost. So these are financially viable alternatives. All financial models, A through D, assume that the debt service is covered by a portion of the $850,000 general fund allocation. For deployment of phase one, we've estimated that the debt service rate, the debt service coverage, or the monthly payments for debt service will be about $113,000 per year. So the initial deployment will only use a portion of this initial allocation. The sewer system deployment is not viable without this annual general fund allocation at the projected rates. The sewer system is also largely dependent on subsidy from HRSD customer base. So HRSD is spending over $30 million deploying the system in Middlesex County. And if the burden of that cost were put on the ratepayers of Middlesex, the unit cost you would be looking at would be much, much higher. And the deployment of the topping sewer system would be rendered not financially viable. And finally, that the users pay for the grinder pump, the house connection, and the electrical connection to the system. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions if anybody wants to have any further discussion regarding this update.
Yeah, I have one question, Ken. The transition away from vacuum, what's the downside? Obviously, 30% savings is pretty attractive, but why would we have been looking at the vacuum versus low pressure in the first place? What are we losing?
HRSD's policy is to use vacuum systems in areas where it's not practical to be served by gravity. So when Bowman was tasked with this, they were told to evaluate a vacuum system. And then when the results of that report came out and discussions with HRSD and the county, it was desirable to look at a low pressure system deployment. And the county and HRSD have been talking about allowing HRSD to have this to be used as an acceptable policy because of the cost savings and the ease of operation. And that's something that's currently being considered by HRSD.
When you say considered by HRSD, in a wider context, or just as it applies to Middlesex?
Well, initially with Middlesex, but yeah, on a regional basis for all of the North Shore and South Shore localities. So if this is a policy that's going to be accepted by HRSD for Middlesex, it will be a policy over the entire service area for HRSD.
Thank you.
Mr.
Bob,
Turner? Mr. Turner?
Yes, go ahead, Pete.
Back in my day, which by the way was quite some time ago, we used to run away from vacuum systems as fast as we could. We would much prefer a low pressure system. Has that now changed?
When some localities in low-lying areas wanted to be served by sewer systems, AirVac made a pitch to HRSD in some localities that it was the best thing since sliced bread, and some people took the bait, and now they're regretting it. The problem with vacuum systems is when you have a vacuum leak, it sucks water and sand into the system, and it's hard to find the leaks. So that's one thing. And then you have to have a vacuum collection system that collects the flow into a pump station. So it's, two conveyance mechanisms, one to vacuum the flow to the pump station, and then you have a pump station. With this, it's all low pressure and forced pumping, so you eliminate the need for the vacuum system and the potential for problems with leaks. But yeah, I tend to agree with your comment that folks are getting away from them more and more.
Ken, I feel like we should at least acknowledge that at this point we have not looked at economic benefit. For example, phase 2 enables the campground to increase campsites by 250, which would not otherwise be viable. So for 6 to 8 months a year, that's about another 1,000 visitors. And the economic impact of that increase, which is almost 10% of the year-round population of the county, we haven't attempted to make any kind of estimate of the economic impact positive resulting from this. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. And with locating the pump station and the gravity collection system adjacent to the county property at the airport, that also opens up that property for potential economic development and revenue generation for the county.
Is there any component in the anticipated study right now that would try and capture this? Or are we going to be just pretty much anecdotal at this point?
We have not included that at this point, and my crystal ball can't predict that. So we can make some inferences, but again, I think it would be purely speculative. But the development in the county is going to be driven by the feasibility and profitability of any land and associated land uses and the availability of water and sewer. Grace Point Marina has, a bunch of septic tanks, and some of them are failing. As with the Deltaville area, there's a lot of septic tanks out there that are failing, and some of these properties on small lots that have a failing system, the health department may not reissue a permit to install another drain field if there's not enough real estate or separation from the regional high water table. And the cost of septic tank replacement and engineered system can run up to about $30,000. So providing a central collection and conveyance system for wastewater, I think, is good for the environment. It's good for economic development, and I think it's good all around.
Thank you. And the last thing I wanted to clarify, we've talked about the $10,000 connection fee that a homeowner should expect. And it's my understanding that whether the homeowner pays the county $10,000 and the county would install the grinder pump at its expense, or the homeowner chooses to install the grinder pump, it's roughly going to cost $10,000 no matter what. Is that accurate?
That's correct for a typical installation, unless the house is, 500 feet from the road or set back on a big lot. If there's an excessively large run of sewer and electrical, it may be slightly higher.
Okay.
But by and large, what's that?
Thank you. I appreciate that clarity.
Bob, do you have anything to add that I've missed?
The only thing that I would say is I wanted the board to understand that we ran the model with 300 gallons per day and 200 gallons per day for a particular reason. 300 gallons per day is a design parameter that we have to use to get through the health department. In reality, an average of 200 gallons per day is more likely to be what you will see, and that affects the income generated greatly, as you could see. That's why the last two scenarios were not viable without county support to retire the capital debt. It appears that the O&M operations cost would certainly be covered by the 200 gallons per day income derived from connections, but the capital debt service would take a much longer time to retire and may not ever be retired. So there will be some uncaptured funds there eventually.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, John.
From an environmental aspect, there's often discussion about septic versus sewer, and in rural context, a lot of times we don't properly maintain our septic systems, even with bay and local regulations. Is there anything about the technology on the sewerage over the last 10, 20 years that you can claim that this is actually a positive environmental impact to be switching away from septic to a low pressure sewer?
Yes, absolutely. You're correct in that the failing septic systems result in increased nitrogen and phosphorus loading, as well as bacteriological loading, when a system fails into the Rappahannock River and the Chesapeake Bay. And sometimes you've seen on the news, at Virginia Beach and other areas where they have beach closings due to bacteria, and that's from sewer overflows or failing septic systems. So if you turn a blind eye, it's likely you'll see increased algal growth, decreased water quality, and potential beach closures.
So theoretically, when this comes to pass, this is going to have, to Lud's point about the economic impact, there's even an environmental impact that potentially could be helping our watermen, our recreational boaters, our fishermen, anybody that's using the natural resource should see a benefit theoretically, correct?
Yes, that's correct. All this flow is going to be diverted to HRSD's treatment plant that uses the best available technology to reduce and eliminate nitrogen loading into the bay.
And then my last question is there a metric on the efficiency of a sewer system?
A metric on the efficiency.
Meaning it's not 100% efficient. There is some losses in any system. I've done tangential reading on rural sewerage deployment throughout the world, and apparently in some places where they're doing this in the East, some of the systems they're putting in aren't as efficient as they could be in terms of taking all the material and moving all the material. And so there's some losses that are acceptable. And then, is there any metrics there that you're aware of that sort of track how well we're doing at getting all of it in the pipe and gone?
Yes, that varies from locality to locality, but the Clean Water Act, it's a violation of the Clean Water Act to discharge any raw sewage into state water. So that's the metric, 0 discharges. But, with some localities that have older systems or the equipment is in disrepair, or even with HRSD system, when you hear about these main breaks, there are inadvertent discharges. And I'd say, the efficiency of the regional wastewater collection system is probably 97 to 98%. Specifically, the metered flow that goes through a meter and that is returned to the wastewater collection and conveyance and treatment system, I would say over 97% is treated at a HRSD facility with the best available technology to reduce or eliminate the nitrogen and phosphorus loading into the bay.
I guess that I came up with one more question. The expected lifetime of a system like this, I mean, I imagine you don't just decommission and replace in full, and it's more piece by piece over time, but what's the assumption you use in a pro forma model for the expected lifetime?
We've assumed a life expectancy of about 33 years for this, and in the financial model, we included depreciation to develop a cash reserve so that when the system does need capital replacement in the future, that there's a cash reserve to fund those without taking on additional debt. And that's included in a portion of the cumulative operation and maintenance cost that was referenced in the financial model.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I know I've gone over my 10 minutes. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you, Ken. Just one other clarification, and Matt, I may need you to weigh in on this. So the financial model at 200 gallons per day, where the full cost, including capital cost, is not covered by revenue. In both cases, the 2% growth and the 3% growth in rate structure, in both cases, the revenue covered operating and maintenance cost, and so the shortfall was in capital service. Is that correct, Ken?
Yes, in all four financial models, we assumed that the revenue generation associated with the wastewater collection system would cover the debt service. So that's another conservative estimate in this financial projection. But currently there's a commitment by the county to have this general fund allocation to help offset the cost of the debt service to make the system more financially viable.
Right, and so the shortfall in being able to cover debt service under the 200 gallon per day scenarios, Matt, I'm just verifying with you, that shortfall is intended to be met with the amount that is in the ongoing budget as set aside for sewer. Is that right?
That's correct. It was always the county's intention, whether the county operates a collection system or turns it over to HRSD for ownership, operation, and maintenance, to pay the initial capital debt service on those sewer collection systems in the regions that we've identified, or the wastewater service areas that we identified for deployment. That's covered under the $854,000 that the county has in that set aside capital reserve fund in order to move up to debt service payments to offset those costs. And if I may, I wanted to add one other component. I think our planning director has signed off, but this is the recovering planning director in me saying this. You've got the economic development components. You've also got the environmental components, but there's a planning component here involved too. The county's comprehensive plan that's been reviewed and renewed several times, and starting in 2010, recognized the need to preserve the rural character while expanding the tax base of the county. The balance that we achieved in that comprehensive plan was driven at a couple of things. We did not want subdivisions sprawling all over the county, taking up valuable farmland, but we also wanted to allow our village clusters to grow up, not out. All of this has been the result of those the initial groundwork we laid on the comprehensive plan to allow those village clusters to become more vibrant and grow a little, while preserving the rural character of the rural character and the rural nature of the county in between those village clusters. Topping was one of those identified village clusters. So I had to state that from a planning perspective. That's another valuable component. As the county's tax needs increase, as we just spent the better part of our lives this morning going over that, we recognize the need to invest in the community and allow for that tax growth or tax revenue growth in those areas identified for growth. And I guess I'll get off my soapbox now. But I added that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for giving me this opportunity to provide you with this update. And I want to confirm with Kevin that you've regained control. I've stopped sharing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Ken.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you all.
All right. Next, we have Water Authority update. Greg Chamber.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think anybody that's been driving around the county knows that we've been putting an awful lot of pipe in the ground. I think we're pretty much from the wells down past the new John Deere Parvin store place, well on our way to Locust Hill. If anything is slowing us down relative to putting pipe in the ground, it's been the weather. We've got a lot of rain lately, and I've given some consideration to asking the board to offer a resolution prohibiting rain from Monday to Friday, but I figured that'd screw up everybody's weekend, so I'm not gonna do that. Pump station progress has been slow due to working out a good understanding of geotech. We're going to be putting an awful lot of weight in those water tanks, and we want to make sure that things are built well, and we're going slow and careful on that. The easement work that I talked about last time is still ongoing. There's still tons of legal work, and it keeps our staff very, very busy and really stretched. And I understand you're going to be talking about that later to some degree. At the last Water Authority meeting, we authorized 77 appraisals that are a component of moving forward with the legal cases on each of the easements that we're pursuing. We are hanging right around 675, 680 subscribers to date. And I want to stress, lastly, the need for good weather. I also unfortunately need to report that one of our 2 crews from Walter C. Vi that was working along Urbana Road was slowed down for, well, I think they are still slowed down. Several members of their crew were either tested positive for COVID or were exposed to other team members. So for about the last week, one of our crews has been offline while we deal with that. In terms of what's going on from a leadership perspective with the authority, other than managing the day-to-day aspects of a large construction project, we're starting to think ahead to the right organizational structure and staffing plan to operate this small business. And it's something I know in my gut that we're going to need to work with the county on, because we're going to have a need for a Noah's Ark of skills, but not necessarily 2 of everything. We're going to need a fraction of of a number of things. So I think it's going to be important going forward that we work together, county, water authority, and even potentially, with the sewer team as the resource plan is developed, to be creative and share what we can to make an efficient operation for our ratepayers and for the county. That's all I had. Is there any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Greg? All right, well, Greg, let's hope that we have no more rain. I can tell you that. For a while.
Thank you very much.
Right. Okay, well, if not, thank you. Next, we have Bay Aging 19th Annual March for Meal Campaign Proclamation. I see we have Kathy Vesley.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you for a moment to request that the board enact the proclamation proclaiming March 2021 as the 19th Annual March for Meals Month in Middlesex County. Next. Oh, you can go on to the next one. Thank you. Now, the need for meals here, I've recently talked to you, so I won't go into detail again, but last year we delivered over 18,000 meals, and that included some of our Helping Neighbors evening meals. And that was to 220 older adults and chronically ill, high-risk population individuals. And so, as you can imagine, the costs are ever increasing as the number of meals continue to increase. And we see this trend into the future. Next. The meal delivery, as those of you who have delivered with Bay Aging in the past know, and we do appreciate when you volunteer. And there's still an opportunity to volunteer this year to be part of the March for Meals campaign. But it's not just the food insecurity and the contribution to good health, it's also overcoming that social isolation. Those of you who have been to the door to drop off food know it can be actually difficult to get away from individuals because they're so pleased to have a visitor. And that is more true than ever now during COVID. So we find more and more porch conversations being prolonged, but that's a good thing and very helpful to the citizens of the county. Next. 90% of individuals, of older adults, will say they want to be able to age in their own home. So the social supports here are what can allow this to happen in a somewhat affordable way. 44% of Middlesex population will be over the age of 60 by 2030, and that's a trend that will continue at least until the next 2040 to the next 10 years. And Middlesex is one of the oldest counties in the state. Actually, it's up not far, it's pretty far up there in the US in terms of the age and the age cohorts of the county. Next. So we're all wanting to encourage livable, age-friendly communities that encourage independence, support the older adults so they can remain in their communities, and foster the engagement, be it civic, economic, social life, and also include individuals living with dementia and their caregivers. So we have a variety of supports, but nothing compares with the Meals on Wheels program. And so with that, I'm here. I don't imagine you want me to read that proclamation to you. But the bottom line here is that we are asking you to support the proclamation because we will use this to indicate that the county supports the Meals on Wheels program. And in turn, we will be asking citizens to support us with donations, support us with their time as a volunteer, and just to generally raise awareness that of the hunger, the poverty and the social isolation of some of our seniors. So we're working together to make Middlesex a better place to live. And I hope we can have your support for the proclamation.
Right. Does anybody have any questions for Kathy? If not, do we have a motion for the proclamation of Proclamation March 2021 as the 19th National March for Meals Month?
So moved.
We have a motion by Lud Kimball. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Lud Kimball, second by Reginald Williams. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coombs,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Turn that mic on, Matt. Pete.
Sorry. Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right. Well, thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Next, we have YMCA, a pandemic update, Buzz Lambert on page 115. Buzz?
Good afternoon, Chairman Jesse and distinguished board members. I'm the linchpin between you going through these reports into the next portion of your agenda. So I will be concise in my statements, but I do want to share that our Middlesex Y is part of a larger association across the across a 120 mile footprint from Smithfield all the way up to Westmoreland. And it would have been this time, close to this time last year, that two of our distinguished board members came and celebrated our association's impact on the community. And certainly say a lot has changed in the last year, but our focus has not. So as we celebrate our 125th year of service in our areas, I wanted to share that our Y will be celebrating a little specially tomorrow. As Dr. Gretz and his wonderful staff, particularly at the elementary school, encourage kids on the 100th day to dress up as 100-year-olds, and it's interesting to see what their creative minds come up with. We're asking our student support children who are in our program to dress up as 125-year-olds this year. So I hopefully will get some pictures that we can submit to the Sentinel and educate everyone how creative our kids are. But I digress a little bit. I hope you've had the opportunity to read over the impact statement I shared in the packet. And also just wanted to kind of move forward with, this time last year, our Y was poised to execute our robust strategic plan that focused on three main tenets: youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. Just a few short weeks later, we shuttered our doors for 12 weeks. This is not a doom and gloom story. To the contrary, I'm here today to shed important light on how our dedicated board, staff, and multiple community partners work together to provide critical services to our neighbors. So I just wanted to briefly share how we fulfilled the affirmation three tenets through this pandemic. Youth development. We partnered with our county, social services, Kathy and her wonderful staff at Bay Aging, River County's Community Foundation, and of course the Middlesex County Public Schools to provide a clean and safe licensed childcare program for all working families in need of this critical service. This was from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Roughly 30 kids were in attendance on a daily basis who lived throughout our county. 2 meals were served to them as well as a snack each and every day that they attended at no cost to their families. Secondly, our generous board also rallied around our cause to finance a temporary 30 by 40 foot outdoor shelter for our children to play, to read, to participate in arts and crafts, and to work on various STEM projects throughout the summer in the fresh air. We also served 30 children with our annual Bright Beginnings program that provided each of these children the necessary school supplies for online learning, which of course was a curveball for us all. And they also received brand new clothes the Friday prior to them going back or starting the hybrid learning experience or process back in November. Moving on to our tenet of healthy living. We, of course, took great strides to adhere to the clean, safe, and healthy mantra of our focus, which has been making the most of our space by spacing out our equipment throughout the center, employing a thorough cleaning process, and of course, PPE usage. That cleaning process is done on a 30-minute basis by our Wellness Center and our Welcome Center staff, as well as all of us, to ensure that when people come into our Y, they are confident that we're doing the best that we can with what we have to make them feel safe and to continue their journey of wellness. Secondly, our WISE group exercise team adapted quickly, even while we were shut down and shuttered for those 12 weeks that everyone was. And we began providing outdoor group exercise classes, as well as lifting ourselves up a notch and providing virtual group exercise classes, serving over 100 or 200 participants, and with 700 views on Facebook when we provided these classes. Also, our staff and volunteers, and I found this interesting that Kathy Vesely shared this about the food drops, because we found this very true ourselves. We made over 400 wellness calls to our senior members, and these meaningful conversations were sometimes the only communication that these seniors had during the day. And what we anticipated to be a 5-minute conversation sometimes turned into a 45-minute to an hour conversation. So just a wonderful connection with our population here in Middlesex. Social responsibility, and this is where our Y resonates throughout our work on a daily basis. This past summer, we took part in a food drive here at the center, to which our wonderful Y board members and several of our Y members helped collect over 1,700 pounds of food. And all of this food went to Healthy Harvest, who's obviously a regional provider. But we were assured that all of the food that was raised by so many of our generous members in the community who wanted to give back in a safe way, all that food, all those non-perishable goods were kept here in the county. And I want to certainly thank the Cryer Center for working with us to ensure that that was the case. We also had over 60 volunteers last year that provided over 1,000 hours of community service, including each and every one of our 18 dedicated board members. Moving quickly, and as I close, as we move forward, our focus on these 3 tenets remains at the forefront. It hasn't changed at all. We continue our clean, safe, and healthy mantra in all that we do. We obviously and strictly adhere to the CDC and Virginia Department of Health guidelines, and look forward to expanding, hopefully sooner than later, our indoor exercise ratios, particularly the group exercise classes. Secondly, I'm also pleased to share that we feel confident that we can offer outdoor youth soccer this spring. More information's to come on that in the next week. And then also come back with our swim lessons, hopefully that will be robust this summer, because we know we are surrounded by water and we need our children to feel confident and safe around water. And golf camp as well later this summer. I'm working with our board a couple projects that we have on our radars. We're looking at securing a permanent outdoor structure here on our campus that not only will serve our WISE needs, but will also serve the Middlesex community's needs. And of special note, similar to Dr. Gretz's conversation about the deionizers or the UV systems and HVACs, we're exploring that option here at our center as well, As you know, we have older adult population is the majority of our membership, as well as all of the children that we serve. So it's something that we're taking very seriously, and finding resources, financial resources to install those are a priority for our board and our staff this year. In closing, I certainly just want to thank Chairman Jesse and all of the board members for your time today. Your generous and continued support is evident, and we feel it and appreciate it on a daily basis. But your dedication to Middlesex County is inspirable, if that's a word. I'm inspired. And at any point in time, if you all have questions as we move through this year, I would love to give you a tour of our campus to see all of the good work that our staff and our volunteers are doing. So with that being said, I'm going to close my comments out. And once again, thank you all for your commitment to RY and allowing us, enabling us to serve the Middlesex community. Thank you.
Thank you for all the things that you and the Y family are doing down there at the YMCA. Any other board member has any information?
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment. I think it's timely in recognition of the service that the Y has provided, particularly to take care of children so that their parents can continue to work. I did some research to try and understand the impact of COVID last year on employment in Middlesex County. And I'm pleased to say that we actually fared quite well. Obviously, our hospitality industry was injured more than any other. The statistics that I found were we had a labor force of 5,229 in December of 2019. That was reduced by 272 people in as of December of 2020, or 3.6%. Our unemployment rate was in December 2020 only 3.7%, which is virtually full employment, if you remember back to reading that statistics in your economics class. So we have fared well, and in part, I think we need to give some credit to the Y for enabling parents to be able to continue to work and not have to withdraw from the workforce. And there are a number of components: good neighbors, good grandparents, but certainly recognize and appreciate the role that the Y played in minimizing the negative impact of COVID on this county. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Buzz. Appreciate that. All right. Next on the agenda, we have our regular agenda item, budget supplement request. Betty Muncy, page 116 to 120.
Okay. This month you have several of these. Most of them are in and out, where money's been received into the revenue and we're just appropriating it into the budget. The first is FY 2021 number 50, where we used CARES money to reimburse the county for additional services during the past election. They received special monies that could be used towards that. So this is just appropriating it back into the regular fund from miscellaneous revenues. Do you want to take these individually or go through them all?
Let's go through them all and we just,
And
motion
you
them
come
all.
back. Okay.
Right.
Just let me know if you have any questions. The next one is number 53. This is a request from the general fund balance of $20,000 to appropriate funds for additional professional services for the county attorney. Number 56 is appropriating funds that have been received actually for the town of Urbana. They come into the county's general fund. These are CARES Act monies that the town has applied for to implement a municipal utility assistance program. They will manage that program and request reimbursement from these CARES funds, and we would transfer them to them. But they are all accounted for and everything through through the county back to the state. So that's for $10,039.11. Then number 57 is an appropriation of refund received from Lower Middlesex Volunteer Fire Department in the amount of $2,815.70 for replacement of a portable radio. And then the last is number 58, $3,100. You might remember back, I think it was maybe in November, possibly. I came to you with a grant request from the Department of Forestry. We had several ash trees that were dead or dying that the Department of Forestry was had a 50-50 cost share for removal of those trees, and then they would also reimburse for replacement. So this is $3,100 for that.
All right, thank you for that, Betty. Do we have a motion to approve budget supplement request form FY 2021-50, 53, 56, 57, and 58? We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion by Reginald Williams. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, we have a motion by Reginald Williams, second by
either Lud or John.
Said it, but I think Lud had the punch on it by Lud Kimball. We have a motion to be properly second. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Kentz?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
You just
Nope,
turn it on. Turn it on. There we go.
Try it again, Mr. Mansfield.
You just turned it off.
Yeah.
Aye.
There you go. Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
And Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried. All right, next we'll have County Administrator update.
Yes,
Matt
Mr.
Walker.
Chairman. I have one item that I'd want to discuss, and if the board hasn't received it, it will be receiving it in the next several days, and that is a memo from our Economic Development Authority requesting that the Economic Development and Tourism Department be placed under their management and care. The chairs and I, the vice chair and the chairman of the board, along with myself, met with the chair and vice chair of the EDA, along with Michelle, to discuss some of the logistics of that transfer. This is something that we've talked about off and on for the last couple of years, and the EDA seems to be wanting to move this to fruition. We'll have more to report on this next month, and I believe the EDA, along with Michelle and our county attorney, and also doubly served Economic Development Authority attorney, is working on a resolution to nail down some of the details. This we discussed briefly in the budget work session this morning. Little nuances to this that need to be worked out. I know that Betty and I have discussed some of the logistics involved of setting that up as a separate company, as it were, under the AS400 system and the Bright system. So there's some, I hate to use the word logistics more than 3 times, but here it is. There are some logistics and circumstances we need to move through and work through on being able to accomplish that. And we'll have more to discuss on the matter potentially in April. Of course, I think the board's familiar with my opinion on the subject. I think the Economic Development Authority has grown. The membership has definitely taken a more vibrant interest in their role in the community, and it would be a good potential move to place the Economic Development Department under their care, as that is their designed purpose as an authority to pursue those types of endeavors. And I'll have more to report on that next month, and potentially a resolution for the board's consideration to make that shift. Again, I think we've discussed it on and off over the last couple of years, but now there seems to be an interest in receiving that on the part of the EDA, and we'll be discussing it more potentially next month.
All right, that's it.
That's all I dare say, given the time of the day and how much y'all have had on your plate today.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. County Attorney update. Heather.
Yes, sir. Now I have a couple of items, so I guess Matt and I are tag teaming. I get to be a little more lengthy. So first thing I have on the agenda is just a brief update on the unsafe structure removal. You'll see the memo from the building inspector in your packet, but essentially we've advertised for the 2 consecutive weeks. I confirmed with the building inspector and support staff that they have not received any contact or communication from the property owner, and the structure has not been removed. So what we will do now is wait the statutory 30 days, and at the end of those 30 days, we can move forward with the removal and placing a lien on the property. So I just wanted to keep you up to date on that matter. The next one is a mix of I'm excited, but I'm sad at the same time. I've learned that Lynn Dunleavy is retiring. And while I'm excited for her in this next chapter of her life, I grew up with Miss Dunleavy's, one of her children, and I've just known her all my life. And so it's been a pleasure working with her. She is our circuit court clerk, and she is retiring. So that means that the board needs to petition the court for a writ of special election. So this position will be on the election ballot in November. I've prepared a resolution in your packet, essentially authorizing me to prepare those legal pleadings. I will have to file them. Ms. Dunleavy is retiring at the end of March, so I'll need to file them. It's a very short term. I think I have 15 days to file them from the date of her retirement. So I am working on that as we speak. So, Mr. Chairman, I would ask for the board's consideration of the resolution in your packet on page 124, please.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution for the circuit court clerk? It's a resolution that we have on page 124.
I so move.
All right, we have a motion by Pete Mansfield. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second by Lud Kimmel. We have motion been properly second. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield? You can
Pete,
see
you gotta work with that mic now.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye. Motion so carried. Is that it for you, Heather?
I think so, but if I think of anything else, don't worry, I'll holler. I think that was enough for me right now.
All right. All right. Next, we got unfinished business and new business. All right. In unfinished business, I'll just run around. Any board member have any unfinished business at this time? None?
Nope.
I have some unfinished business that I like to discuss in this dealing with. I know we had made a motion last month about the windows, and by going over to St. Clair Walker, their school, and looking through there, because I know me and Reggie had a tour with what was the school that we toured with? I mean, they had the people come to the school to tour. Right. So you put your mic on when you do it there. Have your mic on. All right.
Charlie Pope of Thomason Schools.
Right. And then they were looking at different schools, but as looking at everything, and while we were there, we also looked at the gym floor that was over there that was overlooked really, because they're still gonna have activities there with the gym floor and everything like that. And by looking at that, and then, naturally in construction, I had to, lift up a ceiling and look at windows in different areas, and to come find out, those windows are in contact. I mean, by looking at that, I think really the money would be better served to fix the floor, because a little history on this project, that back in 1997, it was going to be very, very expensive to take all those old windows out and put those back in. So for the county to save money, they ended up, stuffing them in and furring them off, and then lowering the ceilings in all those other areas. And with little research, it's going to cost a lot of money to to say, hey, let's put windows in here so, you know, they can have light. And it's been there since 97, so you're looking at almost 24 years. And work has been done. And I think if we're good stewards to the taxpayers, that money that they say, let's put a window in to see what it's gonna cost all the way around, when if you do the math, actually, it's gonna be hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s to put windows all the way around a building that is already there, secure, insulated, very well, you know, well insulated and secure, and you have a older building there. And to put windows in to say, let's put it here to see what it's gonna cost everywhere else, when you know it's gonna be very expensive. I think the funds would be better paid to fix the floor and complete that gym and finish the HVAC system and all of that, because just doing some research and talking to Gordon Jones and all of them, they did look at what it would cost to go all the way around. It's very expensive to say, hey, we want to put windows in here to put curtains up, and there was a lot of different reasons why. But I think for taxpayers, it'd be a very good idea to revisit the extra cost to just put in some windows in to see what it's going to cost. So I just mentioned that out right now. If any other board members would like to have something to say, I'm opening the board up for it right now.
I got a couple of things to say. And I know last week when I invited Charlie Falk down here to Middlesex County with the idea of a building that will house about 100 kids for school. Old Sinclair Walker, the Puller Center, as well as the cafeteria and the kid building was toured. I haven't got a respond back, and we don't know whether it's going to be positive or not. I know one thing, something like that would be good for Middlesex County. And Old Sinclair Walker would be a perfect place for a school like that. I looked at the building, I went there. And we got to stop as a board spending money on top of money. We'll do something one way, and then we'll turn around and do it another way. If you think back at the things that we did here at Middlesex County over the last 10 or 15 years, you'll come find out that we were spending money patching and disagreeing to agree. Now, we know the gymnasium at Old Sinclair Walker need to be completed. We don't want to rush and not do that. We want to make sure that's done right. I have talked to some different people to see what they feel about it. Article was written in the paper about different things, which it kind of like bothered me a little bit. So I done my little investigation. The building looks fine on the inside like it is. It's been there for a while, remodeled. The question you ask yourself sometime when you got to make a decision about something, how can you abuse the taxpayers' money twice just because you want to do something? I just don't see it that way. We got to complete as a board, and I'll say it over and over again, we got to learn how to work together. And we got to complete one project before we jump on to the next thing. And this project at Coast Corner, this renovation, it needs to be taken care of in the proper way, is to make sure that we finish the gym, put that in good shape. Then if we have to deal with something else, we better look at the cost real good. Because at $23,000 to replace that window, which the old ones are in there, we looked at it, and we really look at that building real good, we'll find out that we dropped the ceiling in the building. It's another cost. We're not looking at it. We dropped the ceiling. We'll renovate that building as Middlesex County the cheapest way we knew how to do it. Now we want a kind of like lag on it. We didn't do it right. If you look at it, you ride by there anytime you want and look at that building. We as a county didn't do it right. Now we can't afford to halfway do something again, not this board. So the way I'm looking at it is just like this year. Sometimes you got to go back and make sure it's right what we did so we don't do it wrong. So my way is about it, to be honest with you, is that we don't need to mess with the windows right now. Let's take care of the gym. You know, we don't need to rush into make a motion like the other time we was talking about it. We jumped up to do something else. We're gonna pat each other back. We're gonna pat the counties back, and we're gonna pat the taxpayers back. So some of these things, that's what we got to do. We got to complete what we started out to do. And on our start out, our base bid was A. And we passed A, then we added on to B. That made the second one on windows. And we should never done that. We should have took care of A and left B alone. But if you're looking at the way it was done, you'll find out that we made a motion for A and B. One of them, we add the windows into the package. And if we never add that, we won't have this conversation right now. So that's how I feel about it.
I'd just say that it's an interesting characterization to me to say that we're rushing into a window project that we voted on in June of last year, that we first started talking about 4 years ago. And in light of how we treated the RCE building that now has a roof that is completely worthless, and a building that is almost a tear down because of neglect and deferred maintenance, we're finding out about a gym floor as part of an HVAC project that we approved over a year ago. We have an HVAC system that we just approved earlier today at the elementary school that we've known about for 10 years. So to say that we're rushing in making these decisions, I think is confusing to me at least. And the notion that we have to do anything with the drop ceilings. I mean, I too have been in those walls. I've seen the old windows. I've done the research all the way back to Marcia Jones. I've heard the arguments that the noise is an issue because of the road being so close, but I've actually built houses with windows in them. And the window quality in 2021 is a little bit different than when these were put in the 50s or 60s or whenever they were, and then when they were summarily capped with stucco. The reality is that money is something we allocated to the windows. We then heard pushback from some factions of the board, and we decided, well, why don't we just try a couple so that we can figure out if that expense that Bay Design suggested was there is accurate or not before we decide to take on more. I think we've been fiscally responsible with it. I think the argument that I'm hearing is I'd rather do a floors than a windows, and I'd rather pay the police than the windows. I mean, if we start going down this road, well, I'm going to steal from this project we already agreed on because I just found out about another project that I like better. That to me is rushing. As opposed to what we've been doing for 4 years on this particular item. And I've also heard the argument that we've talked to people at social services and at the school board. I've talked to those same people, and while they're reluctant to come out and say we really would like a better work environment, something akin to the courthouse there where you see curtains in front of the window right behind the desk that you're sitting at. It's pretty standard fare when people decide where they want to work. They look at the compensation, they look at the health care, they look at the environment. And right now that looks like a prison. And that's been the case all along. And that's what we're trying to address. That's what we voted on June 2nd of 2020. It's what we voted on again. So I just don't see it as rushing. If you disagree with it because you think it's a tight budget, despite our revenues being fairly unscathed by COVID, that's fine. Despite our fund balance being as healthy as it's ever been, I just think let's call a spade a spade. You don't like the window project, you don't like it. You have every right to bring it back up and have us reverse our vote or whip up votes that will reverse what we've already decided we were going to do and the compromises that we've already made to get to a smaller window project, so that we could explore the cost and be fiscally responsible. But let's call it what it is. You've changed your mind, and that's okay. You've gathered more information and you've come up with a different decision. But to say that we've been rushing this, we don't have a history of rushing projects in Middlesex County. You can look across the street at the RCE, you can look at the HVAC that we just voted on at MES. You can look at the high school expansion in the East Wing that should have been done 20 years ago. You can look at anything on our capital improvement plan We always say it's just a plan and we kick things down the road. You can look at the moldy police office that we crammed 28 people into. There's a lot of things that are getting deferred maintenance treatment and have been for decades here. So to cherry pick this window project and suggest it's been rushed, I don't see it.
Well, I can say I didn't say it cherry picking, because I can tell you from day one, I've been saying, this was a vision of some administration back some time ago, probably before you even being on the board, that they wanted to put windows in it. But and then you were on the different boards too, and you understood that it was going to be very expensive and costly to put windows all the way around it. That's why you're doing samples. And my understanding when we first started, it was just a HVAC system and the gym and some doors and different things like that. But then the windows got put in this at the initial stage. It wasn't put in because I wasn't involved with Gordon Jones and you and all that. But when I talked to Gordon Jones, he said, hey, they wanted to put windows all the way around it, but they saw that it was so expensive. And that was the reason why. So, I never said what Reggie said. I can tell you that. But I knew from day one that this was a project that wanted to do back some time ago to some people. But I never heard that anybody from the school board or social services come to us and say, hey, we got to have windows in here. We cannot work in here without windows. We cannot get projects done without windows. We can't do nothing not unless we get windows. We did not hear this. It's a historical building. And I'm just saying, they're intact. Why spend more money over money when it can be well serviced for the gym floor? And I just speak my piece on that. And I think, we need to take another look at that, and it is what it is. And if any other board members have anything to say?
I would just add that we did just have the Cook's Corner revitalization project, and I'm on the Middlesex Foundation, and we're working on that with the historical committee. Revitalization is what we're trying to do in Cook's Corner. And right now we've got what looks like a jail facility.
Yeah, my only comment, Mr. Chairman, is we've spent a tremendous amount of time on a window, and I think it would be desirable to have a conference room that had a window. But given where we are in the budget decisions, the very tough budget decisions that we need to make right now, and we are committed to renovating that gym, which looks like it will take more funds than we had originally anticipated, I feel compelled to change my support. And so I would say that the windows just don't rise to the level of something that I would want to fund right now.
You got the motion?
Once again, I have to go along with what Lud said about completing the gymnasium, and also about all this history that everybody telling me. I've been in this county, more than anybody else. Most of y'all have been on here 7, 8 years. You don't need to come back and tell me how long something needs to be done. I was trying to stay away from these type of conversations as a board. We don't need these type of conversations. Trying to be right or wrong. We're not looking at a wrong or right. We're trying to do the right thing, and we will make sure that we take care of the gymnasium. Therefore, I want to make a motion descending rewarding Cook's Corner project renovation to Trinidad USA Contracting for the base bid of A and B in the amount of $9,558 and $9,558,098.04 that was rewarded to Trinidad USA base bid, which was base bid, that was the base bid. And then I'm gonna add to the total bid to change it to bid A, like we started off in the first place. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that, but anyway, the base bid to bid A in the amount of $935,471.
We have the motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Put your mic on. Pass it to me.
Reggie, can I just clarify, because I didn't have in front of me what you were reading from? What you're proposing is the 900 and some $1,000 renovation of the gym, but excluding the window?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the final
I'll second that.
motion.
And the difference, what's the difference of that? 22,000?
$22,627.04.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Reginald Williams and been probably second by Lud Kimball. A motion probably second. Any more discussion?
Yes, I would like to suggest we put this off for a couple of months. For one thing, I would like to go by and take a look at it, and I'm not sure that I can make my decision without taking a look at the actual building.
Well, at this time, Robert rules, we have motion on the floor and probably second. At this time,
I would also say if we're realizing now that the gym project is more expensive because we didn't know that an unconditioned space would lead to mold and floor deterioration, maybe we need to go find out how much that floor is going to cost us before we decide to spend any more money on that building.
well, right now, we got a motion on the floor. I know you're still discussing it, and yeah, we're still discussing. But like I'm saying now, as through Robert rules, you know, got a motion, then probably second, and we just still discussion. We're still listening.
Yeah, that was a discussion point, Wayne.
Right. Okay, I'm just explaining that. And two, while we're discussing, you know, I think it's kind of sad to say, you know, a historical school like that, it looks like a prison when, you know, I think what was done, murals can put on that for the historical trail, and you can see a lot of things. Then it won't look like a prison. Like that's the first time I heard it look like a prison. I'm gonna let you know that straight up since we're discussing. And I think, you know, if you don't want to look like that, get your group together and let's put some murals and get together on the side of it and make something look nice for the historical trail that goes around to the backside of that. All right, we had any more discussion? We had a motion, it's been properly discussed. All right, at this time, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Nay.
Mr. Mansfield,
Abstain.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye. Motion so carried. All right, we're right at almost 2 hours. We're gonna have to do roll call again and then a 5-minute break. Betty?
Mr. Coons,
Present.
Mr. Mansfield,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Yeah. All right, let's get a 5-minute break and then we come right back and finish up. Turn the mic. All right, is everybody back on board yet? Let me see where Pete. I'll give Pete a few more minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've got Ben Burton standing by as a call-in in case the board does want to ask him to ask Triangle to get some, to survey the gym floor and give us some estimates on a potential change order. Would you like me to promote him to panelist so you can talk to him a little bit about that?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. He'll be with you in a second.
Does everyone have the link for the closed session? The gentlemen in the boardroom don't need to worry. I'm going to do that. But I think, does everyone else have it?
Yes, Kevin, I have it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, there is a phone number ending in 2993. That's Ben Burton. Can you promote him to panelist, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Ben, are you with us?
We're not.
I believe I'm unmuted, gentlemen. Is that correct?
Yeah, you are unmuted. We can hear you.
We're not in session yet.
I know. I'm just getting him squared away.
Here come Pete. Oh. He went to the other room. We have just finished up on unfinished business. I was waiting for Pete to come back. Hey, Betty, do we need roll call to come back in?
I would say yes.
Okay, right. Okay, I'm just making sure. Been a long day. Hey, Pete, can you hear me?
I'm going to give him a call, Wayne, and see if we can get him back in.
I think he just went around that corner. He may be in the bathroom. There we go. All right. Betty, can you give us roll call again?
Mr. Koontz,
Aye. Wayne has an echo. So do I, apparently.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right, we're back in session. All right, we just finished through unfinished business. New business at this time. Matt?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do have with us Ben Burton with a discussion that just happened regarding the gym floor. It may be timely to ask him to reach out to the contractor that has the low bid and has been awarded the project to see what kind of improvements could be made to the gym floor and potentially consider a change order. Ben, are you able to discuss that?
Can I make a technical point very quickly? I think Mr. Burton's may have 2 Zoom connections open. There's some feedback coming on that line. So if you have multiple instances open, you'll want to either close one out or turn off the speaker and microphone on one of them because we were getting a little bit of feedback. But go ahead and try it.
Surely the county's consultant engineer would have better technical abilities than that. Ben, say it isn't so.
I think Ben has his phone off.
We'll have to hit *6. There you go.
*6.
Am I unmuted now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Yes, gentlemen, I was listening to the earlier decision that you made to modify the award to the low bid contractor, and that's fine. We'll be working with the county attorney and Matt to develop the appropriate contract so that can get underway for your for the final consideration and authorization after the financing. Matt did brief me on the fact that everyone is concerned now about the gym floor. Apparently, I'm not sure if all the equipment has been moved out of the gym so that we can see the gym floor, but in any case, we're in a position, and I suggested to Matt that I get in touch with the contractor and have him go out there with me, and we'll take a look at the floor and see what needs to be done to it to replace it in kind. I'm not sure if it's a tile floor. I'm not sure if it's a wood floor. I'm not sure if it's an old asbestos tile floor. But in any case, we'll take a look at it and try to come up with some estimate of what that may cost. Once the formal contract is set up with the contractor, then we'll be in a position to do a change order to that contract to add in whatever repair to the gym floor that the board wishes to have done.
And we have till the end of April to execute a contract. The bids are good for 90 days. Is that correct, Ben?
That's correct. The bids were taken on January 28th, I believe, or 29th. So we have 90 days after that. We're, from what I understand about the finance package, it's going to be running close to that, but we'll move it ahead.
And like I said earlier, gentlemen, we'll know more from Ted and Dan regarding our RFP for the financing on March 18th, and we'll get something to you all as soon as we have it. Thanks, Ben.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
along the lines of the floor, I know we've just decided to go forward with the base bid and take care of the HVAC and the windows in the gym. Can we have Karen Reed maybe in the April meeting come and explain what programs and what kind of numbers she's going to have in the gym? Because I understand we're getting rid of a fair amount of equipment, and I don't know if we're turning it into a basketball court or a mixed use. I just don't know what we're planning on doing. So to evaluate the cost of the floors, I need to understand the benefit that we're getting out of reconditioning the space even further. So if it would be okay, I'd like to ask Matt to maybe have Karen speak to her dreams and visions for that space.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be a good idea. But my understanding, summer party is going to be a multi-purpose use. From basketball to tumbling, and different things like that. And she can explain to you, maybe aerobic dance and different things like that.
Yep. I just want to understand.
Universal type thing that you use for gyms. The basketball goals are still there, but she can probably clarify everything for you at the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any more new business? If not,
Mr. Chair, I have one brief thing. Keep Middlesex Beautiful has, as you may recall from last month, some new membership, and I've been participating in the meetings. And for Earth Day, which comes up next month on April 22nd, they are going to do a countywide cleanup. It's going to be actually on April 24th, which is a Saturday, and there's more information coming. But the reality is this sort of reconstituted group has a lot of energy, and our roads have a lot of trash. And so we're going to be looking to each of the supervisors to hopefully participate or encourage constituents in your district to participate. There's going to be numerous opportunities, and we all know the roads in our districts that for some reason get really hit hard. Dirt Bridge, Regent, Stampers, Twigs Ferry in my district, and parts of the Pooler Highway, and I'm sure you guys can say the names off the top of your head of the roads that look the most egregious in yours as well. But it's great to see citizens stepping up, and anything we can do to support them and help get the word out about April 24th. And there's also social media sites. Keep Middlesex Beautiful. Hopefully we really get some momentum and get some curb appeal back. Thank you.
I think that's a great idea. I guess when they put it on the county website, can they put that on the county website too, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'll work with Kevin and Matt on getting as much publicity through the county as we can, for sure. Good idea.
All right, we appreciate that. All right, next would be matters presented to the board. Well, I guess I started with you, John. Anything?
No, that was it. Thank you, Wayne.
Okay. Pete, you have anything matters presented to the board? Pete? Your mic's off.
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. How about Reggie?
Nothing right now.
All right, Lud? And me, nothing at this time. Okay, let's move on. Need Heather, closed session.
Yes, sir. So we have two matters. It'll be a lengthy motion. So, Mr. Chairman, we need a motion from the board to convene in a closed session pursuant to the Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A3 and A8. This is for the discussion and or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, where discussing in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, and with consultation with legal counsel regarding such acquisition, and pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1. This is for the discussion of personnel matters, specifically regarding my office as county attorney.
All right, do we have that motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Lud. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Lud, seconded by Reggie. Any more discussion? Not roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. All right, we're going to executive session. Kevin, you gonna switch us over, right? I guess he will. Oh, you okay?
I will. Yeah, I will, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, so we don't have to select a link anymore?
Yes.
I'm only doing it for the board.
You do.
Yeah, everybody else, like Pete and John and yourself, will have to click the link in the chat. If you don't have it, Pete, let me know. But there should be in the chat a link to get into the next session.
You got
Hey, Pete, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna send you a link in the chat down there. Let me stop sharing this for a minute. And that will be the one that takes you into the closed session. So let me know if you get this. All right. Do you see that, Pete?
Yeah.
Okay, can you go ahead and click on that for me and join the other meeting? It'll ask if you want to leave and then join
Click
the
on
next.
what?
There should be a link in the chat down at the bottom there. You see a little chat box
Share screen?
next to it.
Oh, no, I see. Says chat.
Yeah, click on that. You should see a chat from me, and you can click on that link that's in there.
Okay, I did.
Okay, and it'll ask if you want to leave and join the other meeting, and just say yes.
Where does it say that?
Once you click it. Did you click the link itself that was in the chat?
I did.
Okay, and click it again.
Oh, yeah, I see something that says leave. Should I hit?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
And I say
Leave
leave.
meeting.
Yes, sir.
Click on that.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. We back. Yeah, we got 11. Two chat. Well, that is, but you gotta think about it. That's us 6, 7. Then you got Betty, Susan Trainer.
We don't kind of participate.
Huh?
We don't kind of participate.
Oh, well, you see, that includes everybody.
Include us too?
Yeah, yeah. That includes everybody. So you're talking about 6 other people.
Get your budget and enjoy your not concerned about.
Get it on. Is Heather back on yet?
She's got her hand up out in the waiting room because Kevin won't let her back
Kevin
in.
trying. I see somebody got a hand raised.
Yeah, Kevin has to move her.
Sorry, trying to get Pete back in. Sorry, guys.
We gotta get Pete back.
I'm here.
Right. I can think we're waiting on Pete to get back on.
Mr. Chairman, do you wish to proceed or you want to wait a little bit longer?
Waiting on Pete to get back on.
He's coming.
Yeah, it looks like he's on.
Is he on?
I warned you, Betty. It was a matter of time.
Yeah.
Scary thing is he does that when he's kayaking too.
Hey, Pete.
Okay, I think we're.
All right, Heather, we're ready for you.
All righty, Mr. Chairman, we need a motion to certify the following statement. To the best of the members' knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted in the motion by which the closed session was called was considered or discussed in the closed session.
All right, do we have that motion?
So moved.
Motion by John, do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion by John, second by Lud. Motion been probably second. Roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried. All right, Heather.
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 items that are seeking action before the board. The first is seeking a motion to authorize the county administrator to hire support staff for the county attorney's office, either through a staffing agency or direct hire.
Okay, do we have
So
that
moved.
motion? Motion by John, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Lud. Motion been probably second by Lud. All in favor, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Nay.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried. All right, have the second one.
Second one, Mr. Chairman, we need a motion to hire Stephen Mead to assist the county in representation in a legal matter regarding real estate.
So moved.
We have the motion by John. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Lud. Motion has been properly second. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Nay.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried. All right, do we have a motion to recess?
So moved.
All right, do I have a second? Motion by John, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Lud. Motion's been probably second. All in favor, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield? Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?